everyone, it's Jennifer from Flux. Welcome back to week 4 of the 2019 Flux Holiday Crochet Along. We are happily and busily working on our Merry Little Advent Calendar. This is a really fun and special project that I've been getting a lot of requests for a long time of this project of can we make some kind of an Advent calendar? So what I did was I created this snowy kind of tree scene where each one of these shapes is buttoned on. So each day leading up to the from December 1st to Christmas, so there's 25 shapes, you will button one per day until the last day, Christmas Day, you will put this gold star at the top. So it kind of culminates up to the gold star. And so today we're going to be making some of these shapes. Now just to recap, week 1, we talked about, we're up to week 4 already. Can't believe it went by super fast. But week 1, we talked about the supplies, everything you need for this project, and kind of the intro and all about the project. Week 2, we created our base, or our pretty canvas that all of this will be on, the snowy ground, the blue sky, and the red edging. Week 2, we did, week 3, we did the tree, this really simple triangle shape, and we did some chains of snow to make it like a snowy outdoor tree. Week 4, this week, we are going to be making the shapes. So there's a lot to this week because we were making a lot of different shapes. Now I will say every single one of these shapes that we see here, so the snowflake, the square packages or presents, the heart, the circle, the star, they're all achieved in just one round. So these are all one round shapes. And the reason I did that is because you do a starting chain to begin your shape, and that makes a hole in the center, which is perfect for buttoning it on to your scenery, okay? So we're gonna go through each shape today. This is probably our longest tutorial, but we're gonna go through every single shape stitch by stitch. We're going to be making the squares. We're going to learn how to make these little bows. We're going to make the heart, the circular ornaments in different colors. We're going to be making this 6-pointed snowflake for our snowy sky. And we're going to be making this one round star in gold, which is totally optional. You could use the gold color yarn if you choose. So we're going to go through all the shapes together. And then next week, we're going to learn how to make the bag. This is the storage bag for all of your shapes that you'll be making. And then finally in week 6, we're going to put it all together and sew everything, glue some things, add some embellishments, and our little hanger. So let's get started on all of our shapes. And before we begin, just feel, if you're on social media, be sure and use the hashtag FiberFluxCal and join our Ravelry and Facebook groups. I'll put the links down below. They're wonderful maker spaces where you can share your work and ask questions and things like that. So let's get started and jump right into all these wonderful shapes. For today's project, you'll need a tapestry needle, a pair of scissors. We're going to be using the same 6mm J crochet hook that we've been using for the whole crochet along. This is my Furls Odyssey hook, in case you're wondering. I always get a lot of questions about my hooks. And the yarn colors are going to be, we're going to be using actually every yarn color. This is probably the biggest part of our crochet along tutorial-wise, because we're going to be making, like I mentioned before, all of these little components. So for the yarn, we're going to be using all the colors I just mentioned in the first week of our crochet along. But just to review, we're using Red Heart Super Saver in the gold, cherry red, Aran blue, and Patty green, as well as, now you can do your gold star in the gold yarn. It will look like this color here. I happen to have some gold cording that I'm going to try using for my gold star at the top. So if you have anything like that, you know, feel free. If not, you can use the gold. So let's get started. We're going to start by making the heart, okay? We're going to go through each shape, and each one of these is a one round piece to our scene. So we're going to go through each shape together, stitch by stitch, okay? So I'm just gonna kind of scoot everything out of the way. I'm gonna keep my yarn handy. So here is our little heart, and let me just zoom in so you can see what I'm doing here. What we're gonna do to make the heart is wrap yarn around our fingers like this, bring the yarn behind the loop, reach in with your hook, bring up a loop, and tighten. Then we're going to chain 4 to start. So to make a chain, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the loop. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to join in the farthest chain from the hook with a slip stitch. So insert the hook into that farthest chain from the hook, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and now we have the circle that we'll be working our stitches into. I'm also going to hold this tail along the edge so that it can be woven in as we work. The next thing we're going to do for our heart is to work a double crochet into the center of the ring. Wrap yarn around hook, insert it into the center of the ring, bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. Next, we're going to work a treble crochet. So wrap yarn around hook 2 times, insert it into the center, bring up a loop. You'll have 4 loops on your hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the next 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. If you need to push things over a bit as you work, feel free. Then we're going to work another double crochet into the center of the ring. Then to create that little heart, that little divot in the middle here, we're going to work a slip stitch into the center of the ring. Insert the hook into the center, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. All right, now we're going to make the next kind of rounded part of our heart. So we're just going to repeat what we just did. Double crochet into the center. Then we're going to work a treble crochet. Then a double crochet. Okay, so at this point you'll have the top part of your heart. It doesn't look like much, so don't worry about that for right now. Then we're going to work 3 single crochets. So insert the hook into the center, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. That's 1, 2, and 3. To make the side, push things over as needed. To make the bottom point, we're going to work a treble crochet. Wrap yarn around hook twice, insert it into the center, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the next 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops, and then to finish our heart, to come up the side, now we're going to work 3 single crochets once again. So 1, pushing things over, 2, and 3. And then we're going to join with a slip stitch to close. So that stitch right there that you see, first one you come to, just insert your hook into that stitch. It might be a little snug. Bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and your heart is complete. Now it's going to be a little misshapen, so don't worry about that yet. Now cut the yarn, wrap yarn around hook, pull it through, and tighten. Then what we're going to do is flip the heart over. Remember we wove that in as we went along? So give that a nice firm tug and a snip. You can kind of get rid of that tail. And then flip it over. And then you want to just sort of shape it up. So get that little divot in, round up the sides, and then you can kind of sharpen that point. Grab your tapestry needle, flip it over to the back, thread it with your tapestry needle. And then we're just going to weave that in. Okay, so you just go into those back loops. This is going to be the back side. So you want to go in that back part and then pull your tail and then just give it a little snip. Okay, so your heart is complete. Okay, we're going to be making a total of 4 hearts. So 4 hearts here. And they're going to go on our tree as little heart ornaments. Okay. So I'm going to kind of set those aside. And then the next thing we want to do is work on the next shape. So we're going to be making some circles next. So you'll need a total of 5 circles. I went ahead and made all the circles. And you can mix up the colors. So I have 3 gold ones already. I'm going to do 1 more blue. So I'm just going to get a little bit of yarn here, and these center pull balls of yarn work very nicely for projects like this. Okay, so once again, we're going to put a slip knot on our hook, reach in, pull up that loop. It's kind of the same way we started the heart. And we're also going to once again chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Join in that farthest chain with a slip stitch to create that ring, because we're going to work into that center of that ring. And then what we're going to do is chain 3. Actually, let me zoom in so you can see what I'm doing here. I didn't realize I was so far away there. Okay, so we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And then what we're going to do is work 11 double crochets into the center of the ring. This is probably our easiest shape yet. So what we're going to do is work 11 double crochets into the center of the ring. So wrap yarn around hook, insert it into the center, bring up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops. Wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. So that's 1. We're doing 11. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, pushing things over as needed, 8, 9, I'm also holding the tail, 10, 11. I'm also holding that tail along the edges I work as well. Then what you're going to do is count 3 chains up, 1, 2, 3, and join with a slip stitch to close the round, okay? Well, mine kind of popped off there, so just go right in there, that top chain. Mine's a little snug, but you can sort of rock it back and forth there, okay? And then bring that loop through the loop already on your hook, and then we're going to cut the yarn. Like I said, this one's super easy. So then wrap yarn around hook, pull it through to fasten off, and then flip it over, pull that center, give it a little snip to cut that tail out of the middle. Okay, and then just grab your tapestry needle, flip it over again, and then just weave that end in and pull it through, shape it up as needed. Sometimes you might need to shape things up a little. And then just cut that tail as well. And then your little ornaments are done. So I made 2 blue and 3 gold. So these will be going on our tree along with our hearts, okay? I'm just these aren't going to be where they'll permanently end up with the buttons, but I'm just sort of laying them on there to just kind of show you sort of what we're doing here. Okay, so we have our circles, we have our hearts, we have our all these cute little ornaments. And obviously I'm not going to leave them like that, but you can kind of get an idea of the placement of the ornaments on our tree, okay? The next shape we're going to tackle are these cute little squares. Now these will be the packages under the tree, and these actually have 2 parts. We're going to be creating these little squares, but we're also going to put a little bow at the top. So I've already made a few bows just to show you. Now you can do your bows like this and have them go sort of across the package, but it might be a little bit hard to button them on. So what I'm going to do is kind of fold one of these down and put my bow at the top. Now when we do all of our assembly and gluing and everything like that, towards the end of the crochet along, we'll do this part. But just to kind of give you an idea of how these packages are going to look. Now our squares are going to be a total of 6. So I have 5 made up so far. I have 2 gold, 2 blue, and I only have 1 green. So I'm going to make another green, and I'm also going to show you how to make these little tiny bows as well. Our little squares are also super easy to make. So all we're going to do for those is put a slip knot on our hook once again. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Join in the chain farthest from your hook with a slip stitch. And then what we're going to do is, let me just get everything straightened out here. We're going to chain 3. That'll create our first corner. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to work 3 single crochets into the center of the ring. So insert the hook. Actually, let me just zoom in a little bit and I'll push these out of the way so you can see a little bit better. So to work a single crochet, insert the hook into the center of the ring, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through both loops. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Then to make the next corner, work a double crochet, then work 3 single crochet, 1, 2, 3, pushing things over as needed. Then work a double crochet, wrap yarn around hook, insert it into the center, bring up a loop, 3 loops on your hook, yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops. Then we're going to work 3 single crochet, 1, 2, 3. So now we have 3 corners, and then we're going to work 1 more double crochet. Whoops, went through both loops there. Work 1 more double crochet, and then 3 more single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, and we're back to that chain 3 where we started. So count 3 chains up, join with a slip stitch to close the round, and then it'll be shaped kind of funny right now. That's okay, we're going to straighten it all out. Cut your yarn, wrap the yarn around the hook to fasten off and pull through. Flip it over, pull that tail. Now I wove mine in as I went along so I can just give it a tug at the end. And even when you give it a tug, you'll still be able to get a button through there, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Whoops, I didn't cut it all the way through there. Snip that tail on the back. Now you can kind of straighten your square out. Get those corners nice and sharp, get the sides nice and flat. And then grab your tapestry needle. You're going to flip it over to the back. Thread your tapestry needle. And then you're just going to weave it into some of those loops in the back. Nobody will see this part, so just go in the back there. And again, if it's shaped kind of funky, just sort of shape it up with your hands a little bit. Sometimes these little 1 round pieces need a little extra shaping because they're so tiny. So you can even pinch those corners to get them nice and sharp. Okay, so now we have our 6 gifts that we're going to put under the tree. But we need a bow for this last one that we made. So I made all my little bows already. So all you need to do for that is cut a piece of red or whatever color you want to use. Now you could even use some of this gold if you had some left, would be very festive on top of your gifts. And what you're going to do is just make a little bow, okay? So make a loop, tie it around, bring the other loop through. And of course it won't look as nice right away. You have to sort of shape up your bow just when you're making, like when you're making any other bow. So I pulled my loops a little bit smaller because these boxes are smaller. They don't need a bow so humongous. Okay, and then all you want to do is cut your tails. Now I just cut short tails like this. And if you notice, it sort of looks like a plus sign at this point. We're going to glue them down in such a way that they won't look like this. We're going to later on sort of fold this one down and tack it on that way so your gift will look more like a traditional, and then we can, if you need to shape up your tails, you can do that now or at that point. But we're not going to do any assembly once again until the end of the crochet along, okay? So now if I zoom way out here, we have our tree, we put our little ornaments on. Now we have our packages that we can place under the tree, and they look very cute and festive. And you can kind of position those. We're not making any commitments now until we sew on the buttons, okay? And just make sure each one of those packages has a little bow. And again, we're not going to worry about gluing those down this week. We're just making sure we have enough at this point. Okay, so we have plenty of bows, plenty of gifts. So we just have a couple more shapes left. We have our snowflake, which is right here, and our star, which is going to go on the top. So let's do the snowflake next. I think what I'm going to do, because I have a white table and my snowflakes are white, I'm going to slide my tree over here. So we'll have a blue background as we work. Okay, so I'm just going to scoot it all this out of the way. Now we have this nice blue background so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so grab your hook once again. Mine sort of rolled away here. All right, now the snowflakes again are just worked in one round. And what we're going to do for those is once again put a slip knot on your hook. You notice we're starting all these one round projects the same way. And then we're going to chain 4. So chain 4, 3 and 4, join in the farthest chain from the hook to create that ring that we'll be working all of our stitches into. So insert the hook, bring up a loop, bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. You can kind of open that up a little bit to work those stitches in, and again hold that tail along the edge and that'll help you. Let me just grab one of our snowflakes here so you have it to kind of refer to as we're working our snowflake. So next what we want to do is chain 4. So we're going to make 6 spokes on our, or 6 points on our snowflake over here, okay? So what we need to do for each one of these points is chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're going to work a slip stitch in the second chain from the hook. So this loop here does not count. I'm sorry, we're going to skip 2 chains. So this loop here does not count. So skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and in that next chain work a slip stitch. Insert the hook into that chain, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. And then we're going to do a slip stitch in the next chain, that bottommost chain. Okay? And that's all you do for that first point. Okay? Next, we're going to work a slip stitch into the center of the ring. And then we're going to repeat for every point all the way across. So we're going to do all these together. So once again, chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Skip 2 chains, work a slip stitch in that next chain. So skip 2, work one in that third chain, work a slip stitch in the next chain, that bottommost chain, and the next point is done. Work a slip stitch into the center of the ring. We're just repeating at this point. And then we're ready to work our next point. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Skip 2 chains, work a slip stitch in the next chain, and a slip stitch in the next chain, the bottommost chain, and then a slip stitch into the center of the ring. And we have 3 points finished. Now chain 4, 3, 4. Skip 2 chains, work a slip stitch in the next one, work a slip stitch in the next chain, work a slip stitch in the center of the ring, still weaving that tail in as we go along from the beginning, and we have 4 points. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Work a slip stitch, skip 2 chains, then work a slip stitch in the next chain, work a slip stitch in the next chain. And if you need to push things over, feel free to do that as well at any time. Work a slip stitch in the center of the ring. And then we're going to work that last point because our snowflakes have 6 points on them, as you can see here. Okay, last point, chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Skip 2 chains, work a slip stitch in the next chain, slip stitch into the next chain. If you're learning how to slip stitch, this is a great little project to practice. Slip stitch into the center of the ring. And then to finish the round, we're going to slip stitch into the base of that first snowflake point, okay, just to close off the round, okay? Now, grab your scissors, give the yarn a little snip, and fasten off. Wrap yarn around hook and pull it through. I really love these snowflakes against this blue sky. It looks so pretty. Okay, the last thing we need to do is just take care of all these ends. So pull that tight, nice and snug to sort of close up that circle. And again, you'll be able to get a button into there. We chose small buttons, so it's helpful. Snip that one that you wove in. Now grab your tapestry needle, and I need to do a fresh cut on mine. Sometimes if your plies become untwisted, feel free to give it a little fresh cut before you thread your needle. Now flip your snowflake over to the back, and we're going to weave that in. So just go into those loops with your tapestry needle and pull it through. And then grab your scissors and give it a little snip. Okay, so we have 6 points, and of course you'll need to kind of straighten things out a little bit. So like I mentioned before, for our snowflakes, you're going to need a total of 9, okay? So I have some already finished, scattered about here. Let's see, I have much more. They're all kind of hanging out on the side. Okay, so once we get our tree, you can have all your little snowflakes. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so 7, 8, and 9. So let me grab my tree. And again, this is not where this stuff is going to permanently end up. We're going to pretty it up the last week and get everything nice and perfect. But for now, we can kind of, before we get all this stuff glued down or sewn down, we can sort of place it and see, you know, if it's exactly how many we want. Like maybe you don't want your tree to be this full of ornaments. Maybe you can, you know, shift things around a little bit, or you want a lot more snowflakes and less ornaments, or more ornaments, etc. Okay, the last thing we want to do is our star. So we're going to put a gold star at the top of our tree. Now again, you can use the gold yarn. This is actually called gold. Or I had some gold cording I was going to use just to give it a really cute little special touch, okay? So let's begin with our star next. All right, so if you're using this cording like me, it might be a little stiffer than yarn. If you're having trouble, definitely switch back to regular yarn, okay? So once again, and let me zoom in just a hair more to show you, we're going to put a slip knot on our hook. This is really like sort of like ribbon or like for crafting, but I always like to try crocheting with interesting materials, so I thought this would be really neat. Okay, we're going to chain 4, 1, and again, it's a little stiffer, so go nice and slow. 2, 3, and 4. Then we're going to join with a slip stitch in the chain farthest from our hook to create that ring. Now open it up, and again, it's a little stiffer, but we're going to go nice and slow. Okay, so to make our points, our star is going to have 5 points. If you want a 6-point star, just work 1 extra, okay? So what we're going to do is, to make our star points, we need to work a treble crochet chain 1 slip stitch for each point. Okay, so treble crochet is wrap yarn 2 times around the hook, insert the hook into the center of the ring, bring up a loop, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the first 2 loops, wrap yarn, mine is like crinkling a little bit, I don't know if you can hear that, wrap yarn around hook, bring through the next 2 loops, wrap yarn around hook, bring it through the last 2 loops, then we're gonna chain 1, then we're going to work a slip stitch into the center of the ring. So let me just push things over a little bit. And again, it's a little stiffer, so it might just take a little extra patience to work with. Work a slip stitch into the center of the ring. Insert the hook, bring up a loop. Now bring that loop through the loop already on your hook. Okay, and we have our first point. Okay, we might need to sharpen it up later, but it's okay for now. All right, we're going to do the same thing. Treble crochet. Okay, if you're using yarn, you're probably having a tiny bit of an easier time with this. But I really wanted the sparkly gold, so, you know, we sometimes have to get adventurous with our crafty stuff, okay? Chain 1, and then we're going to work a slip stitch into the center of the ring. Okay, so our second point is complete, and we're going to sharpen all this stuff up later and get it nice and pretty. Okay, next point, this is our 3rd point. We're going to work our treble crochet. Get this yarn out of the way. Treble. Chain 1. Pushing things over as needed. And then work a slip stitch into the center of the ring. Okay, we got 2 points left. Treble crochet, chain 1. I have to say that regular yarn makes my fingers feel a little bit more comfortable when I'm using it, but I really wanted to get fancy here. All right, and we have 4 points, so let's work our last point. So treble crochet, and just get it through those loops. And again, this is the last point. Okay, chain 1, sliding things over, work a slip stitch into the center of the ring. Okay, now join with a slip stitch into that chain on the side that you created when you began, and join with a slip stitch. Now mine looks like this big kind of jumbled up gold thing right now. Well, I'm going to fix it up a little bit. So cut the yarn, giving yourself enough room. Wrap the yarn around the hook, pull it through to fasten off. Okay. Now, that one that we wove in as we went along, we're going to give that a nice little tug and a snip. Okay, and then what we're going to do, we're shaping up our star a little bit, but we also want to take care of this end. Now, this obviously, like I've said probably 1,000 times already, this stuff that I'm using behaves a lot differently than regular yarn, so you might when you weave your ends in, you might want to just take a little bit of extra time keeping in those back loops to make sure you accommodate that, and then it doesn't show from the front. So just give it a little snip. Okay, so our star is actually really cute. What I want to do last though is shape up those points. Okay, get them nice and sharp. Now again, this is completely optional. I wanted to get a little bit fancy, but my star, it looks really fun, really fancy and fun. Again, you can use the gold. There are also some gold yarns that are soft. You could try with that as well. So our gold star at the top of our tree will go here. And I gotta say, I really just love the whole look of this. It looks really cute. Very, very cute. Has like a nice kind of homey look for your home. Let me zoom out so you can just see what I'm talking about here. Okay, so we now have all of our shapes, and let me just gather up some of these other ones too. That is going to conclude the tutorial for this week. So let me just, since we did all this hard work here, now again, these bows are not glued on, so they look a little goofy right now, but we're going to get the last week of our cowl. We're just going to get everything nice and stitched up and glued up, and everything will look nice and neat and pretty. But we're going to get all these little, I just wanted to show you kind of where we're at this time. But we have our packages under the tree with our bows. We have our tree, we have our ornaments, hearts and circles. We have our gold star that we'll put on the very last day. That's why I wanted to make it a little bit distinctive. And we have our snowflakes kind of swirling around our tree. So that's how you make all the shapes. Now I know this week was very involved with multiple tutorials. As you put these on each day, you need a place to put them. So we're going to make a matching drawstring bag with some ribbon, some matching gold, to store everything. So as you put them up, you'll have a place for them to go. You could kind of keep them below on the table or something like that. So please join us next week for the next part. We're going to make a little drawstring storage bag that matches. One more thing before we depart, please use the hashtag FiberFluxCal to share your work on social media. We all love to see everything that everyone is creating. And also, we have two groups, the Facebook Cal group and the Ravelry Cal group. These are wonderful community spaces where you can share your work, you can ask questions. It's just a fun place to hang out. So I'll put the links down below for that. Next week, again, we'll be making the drawstring bag, so definitely join us for that. And then the week after that, we'll be wrapping it all up, and we're going to assemble this entire thing. We're going to sew the buttons, we're going to glue some things down, we're going to add the hanging dowel rod and things like that. So definitely keep sharing those photos so we can all see. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest FiberFlux video updates. Thanks again.